Hello, I'm Stuart Barker, the ISO 27001 Ninja, and today we're going to look at how to create a threat intelligence process. How to create a threat intelligence process to satisfy ISO 27001 2022 Annex A 5.7 threat intelligence. This is a brand new control introduced in the 2022 update. So let's go through how you can quickly, simply, and efficiently create your threat intelligence process, or of course you could just download the template at hightable.io. Let's go through that process now. So, threat intelligence. You're going to create your document. You're going to have a lovely Word document. You're going to put all your document markup on there. There are videos and tutorials on the YouTube about document markup. You're going to have your version control when you create your template, when you create your process. Then you're going to have your contents, the things that your process is going to include. It's going to include a purpose, a scope. It's going to include a reference to ISO 27001 clause 5.7 threat intelligence. It's going to cover the principles. We're then going to look at writing objectives. We're going to look at information sources, where we get our sources of information from. We're going to look at roles and responsibilities, threat intelligence reporting, and then finally every document that we have has a compliance section on it, and we're going to look at process compliance. Nice and easy. Let's run through this. If at any point you want to create this yourself, hit pause, type it in, but be aware that this and other templates are available for you to download. So the purpose, we're going to write our purpose of our process. The purpose of the process is to identify and manage emerging threats. Now, there are other videos and tutorials on how to implement ISO 27001 clause 5.7 that go into it in more detail, and there is a detailed blog on it. This is not that. This is specific to creating the process and assumes a level of knowledge. The scope of our threat intelligence process is going to be all employees and third-party users, all in scope ISO 27001 systems and technology, and the information security management system. We're going to make a reference to 5.7. So ISO 27001, Annex A 5.7 threat intelligence. Information relating to information security threats should be collected, analyzed, and produce threat intelligence. You can see in there that we've got a link to the guidance. If you download the template, you'll get that guidance. What is the principle? The principles are existing and emerging threats are identified and mitigated via the risk management process and the continual improvement process. So this is an integrated management system. We're not going to be creating specifics just for every individual process as we go through. We're placing reliance on risk management. We're placing reliance on continual improvement. That's the principle on which we're operating. We're going to create our objectives. Your objectives can be what your objectives want to be, but I am giving you templated best practice. The objectives are identify existing and emerging threats. Through the use of internal and external data sources, existing and emerging threats will be identified. Now you can see that within my templates there are certain sections that are in green. So these are either for you to consider, for you to delete, or they provide you with guidance. I would keep the next part in. In addition, the use of audit processes such as internal audit, external audit, and penetration testing will be used. We're going to rely on those processes as well to identify existing and emerging threats. Objective 2, assess risk and impact. Threats will be analyzed for relevance to the organization. Where a relevant threat is identified, it will be added to the risk register and managed via the risk management process. Objective 3, communicate. Threat intelligence will be shared with, now you can define here where you're going to share it. I would always share it with the management review team. It's the mechanism, and again, videos and guides and blogs on that. But for now, know that threat intelligence will be shared with the management review team as part of the structured agenda. Objective 4, improve the information security management system, ISMS. Threat intelligence that identifies emerging and existing threats will be managed via the risk management process, and any changes or improvements will be managed via the continual improvement process. I say this a lot. There are guides and videos and blogs on those two processes. The next section in our process is we are going to identify our sources of threat intelligence information. The first section is going to be internal sources. So you are going to identify internal sources of information that could identify threats. The examples that I provide you are antivirus and malware protection reports, information security incident reports, phishing reports, internal audit reports, and there may be others. You are going to populate the link, the location where those reports are. You're going to populate who reviews it, who reviews this information, and how often do they do it. This is the analysis, this is the identification aspect of this process. Then we're going to look at external sources of information. Again, some best practices in here with links that are relevant at the time of recording the video. External sources include the UK National Cybersecurity Centre, and there is a link to that. That's actually a very good service that you can sign up to and share information and download information, and I highly recommend it. There is the CISA.gov, the official website of the US Department of Homeland Security, again providing advisories and threat intelligence. There is the SANS Internet Storm Center, again providing a good source of threat intelligence information. And there is a Malwarebytes website, again providing very good free threat intelligence data. Once you've identified your sources of data in your process, you are going to allocate your roles and responsibilities. There may be more roles and responsibilities than we have here, but the basic ones are threat intelligence accountability. Who has overall accountability for threat intelligence and the process? We're going to put the name in and we're going to provide a deputy for best practice. We're going to have a threat intelligence analysis. Who is the name? Who is the person that does threat intelligence analysis? They gather the intelligence from the name sources and they analyze it for relevance and impact. We're going to have the threat intelligence reporting. Who is it that's going to do the reporting? They report out on threat intelligence with mitigation recommendations. So we have our roles and our responsibilities. Once we've defined that, we're going to define our threat intelligence reporting. A threat intelligence report is created. The threat intelligence report is shared with the management review team. The threat intelligence report is shared at least at the management review team meeting and if a significant threat is identified. Threat intelligence reports are kept for at least suggested 12 months. Progress of threat mitigation is reported via the risk management process and the continual improvement process as is relevant. Then we're going to record and write what is our threat intelligence report. We're going to give an overview of the report that we're going to generate. The threat intelligence report gives a high-level threat snapshot summary and records the threat summary. A summary in simple terms of the threat that can be understood by someone with no technical knowledge. The source of the threat, either a link or a description in words of how the threat was identified. The threat level, using a very simple, easy to understand rating of high, medium and low. The initial rating that is a subjective rating is going to be recorded for the potential risk and impact to the organization. The objective rating will be derived as part of the risk management process. So when we do risk management, if it makes it to the risk register, we've got our impacts that are clearly defined and with a key associated with that. Then in our threat reports, we're going to provide threat detail. For each threat, we're going to provide more detail on what the threat is, on the actions, on whether the risk was recorded on the risk register and the risk reference associated with that. I'm going to call out in one moment to the threat intelligence report, and I'm going to show you how you can create a threat intelligence report, or you can download it from the hightable.io website. Finally, within our process, we have our process compliance. Process compliance just looks at how we measure the process, exceptions, non-compliance, and continual improvement. So let's look at the threat intelligence report. The threat intelligence report is going to be a report that you generate periodically, ideally every month or whatever your frequency is. You're going to record the date of the report. You're going to have your usual document markup and version control. Within that, you're going to have your threat summary table. This is going to be the summary of the most recent threats and the threats that you want to report out on. That threat summary is going to have those words that are easily understandable, non-technical words. You're going to have a high-level summary of where that threat came from, and you're going to have that high level definition of whether you believe it to be high, medium or low or not. Then what you're going to do for each individual threat that appears on the summary table, you are going to have a more detailed report where you record the name of the threat, the source of the threat, the initial risk impact assessment, where you can provide more words and guidance on why you came up with your assumptions and why you're presenting what you're presenting. You're going to include in there what your recommended next steps are. You're going to include whether or not it's added to the risk register and the risk reference. All of the information that is then going to be shared at the management review team meeting, where this threat will then be taken forward into the risk management, which could be risk acceptance or risk mitigation or the other risk approaches that we have within our risk process, or whether or not it moves then into continual improvement. So, super high level. My name is Stuart Barker. I am the ISO 27001 Ninja. That was how to create an ISO 27001 Annex A 5.7 threat intelligence process and report quickly, simply, easily, and efficiently. For other blogs on the actual clause and control itself and how to do it, be sure to check out my YouTube. But for now, peace out.